Next, from Springfield, we talked to Representatives Ron Sandack and Jeanne Ives about the recent financial scandal at the College of DuPage and what reforms the two would like to see. This runs about 20 minutes.
Representative Ron Sandack and Representative Jeanne Ives, thanks for joining us. You are both from the DuPage County area. We wanted to talk to you about the College of DuPage and what's been happening up there. For those viewers around the state who haven't followed it, can you give us an overview, and then let's talk a little bit about how something like this happens and what reforms you might want to see.
Jeanne has been at the forefront in our caucus and maybe throughout DuPage as far as revealing and talking about some of the outrageous incidents, lack of good government, lack of good governance, lack of discipline, transparency, accountability. If I'm missing an adjective, it's only because I can't think of it on the spot. The fact is, it's been a poster board example of bad governance. So she's led kind of our caucus. Certainly the Republicans, there have been Democrats, though I would be fair, have been with us on these issues too, but it is unfortunately a shining example of what not to do with government.
Well, let's talk about Jeanne. Can you tell us what happened and how does this come about?
Sure, let me tell you what happened. What happened is that you had one trustee, Kathy Hamilton, get in there and 2 years ago start to understand that things were not done in a transparent way. There were bills being paid that were an impressed fund that was not really looked at by the trustees, not voted on by the trustees. There were no bid contracts going on. There was malfeasance going on in terms of, for the radio station, one guy was writing the invoices to himself and getting cashed out. She saw other problems with governance happening. She saw Bruder's contract extended. It all came to a head over a $20 million email or a grant that they were going to get from the state, and he was going to trade political favors with the former Governor Quinn over that. Bringing that email to light really started the snowball, with a lot of transparency groups getting involved in looking at the malfeasance there. In the end, what you've got is at least 2 state's attorneys' investigations ongoing right now. You've got federal investigations going on. You've got Dr. Bruder, who got one of the largest severance contracts in the history of the state of Illinois, over $760,000 in severance. So you've got a big problem here. We're trying to shine the light on it. Fortunately, we had the board, a new control of the board is going to take effect April 30th, but this doesn't happen in a vacuum. And that's what people need to understand. This is what happens when senior administrators, not just the board president, but senior administrators fail to do what the public entrusts them to do, and instead become part of the problem instead of speaking up. They need to be their own watchdogs, and that hasn't happened. And so we're looking at a lot of reforms to make that occur.
Well, so the College of DuPage, first of all, for those who don't know, is a huge community college.
Yes.
And might be the biggest in the country, I don't know.
Second biggest in the entire country. Yes, it's huge.
It almost looks more like a 4-year university. So on one hand, that's a good thing. It's a big economic engine. A lot of people go there. But what happened to the governing board? How could this whole governing board that was, one would think, responsible for looking over the financial doings of the university, how could they all apparently be part and parcel of turning their back on the malfeasance?
Sure, I'd like to answer that, and if Ron wants to add to it, that'd be great. But here's what happens when you're sitting on a board, and maybe you've just been elected, maybe this is your first rodeo on a board, and you don't know what you don't know. And if you fail to ask the right questions, that's the most important thing of a board member. You have to be able to be initially curious about finding out what's going on, and then you have to have the courage to ask the right questions. And that never occurred. One, because Dr. Bruder's personality is one of a bully. He absolutely is the biggest bully I've ever met in my life. 2, you had board members that were cowed, and when you get in closed-door sessions and you're talking about contracts, you're talking about bids, you're talking about other things that the public is not allowed to be informed on from the get-go, who do you trust? You trust your senior administrators and you trust your lawyers who are drawing up these contracts. And that's what happened. They turned really governance over to the unelected officials at College of DuPage who were not doing the right thing for taxpayers. And that's what happened in this situation.
You know what's, she's 100% right. You know what's interesting? The dynamic of some of these boards is they end up being subservient to a domineering and or charismatic administrator. Now, the administrator, and this could happen in municipalities or other units of government as well, but you see this dynamic where a forceful, dynamic, charismatic personality becomes the leader of the group that's supposed to be the leader. Boards are elected to be not just, watching over, they're the ones responsible to the public. They're the ones that have the duty to make sure everything's done right and to ask the questions Jeanne was talking about, to be courageous. And there is no dumb question to say, I don't get this. Can we walk through this again? That's actually a really good question. I'm not following what's happening right here. Let's slow it down and let's walk through this incrementally. And that did not happen. And Bruder is a very charismatic guy. And so all of a sudden now he's running the board that should be watching him and requiring him to be accountable.
And one of the things I just want to insert, just so people can have, you look at, they have a restaurant that they opened on campus. This isn't just a cafeteria, it's like a French restaurant.
No, it's a 5-star restaurant.
Where an enormous amount of the sales, I think was it 30 or 40% of the sales of the restaurant were wine purchases, liquor purchases that they were pushing through, and that they had hidden accounts that they were charging parties to, this account that initially wasn't even discovered in the, I think, first go-around. Is that?
Yeah, yes, you're absolutely right. They have put this restaurant together on the auspices, saying that this is going to allow students to actually get some credentials for how to work a restaurant at a nice place. That's not happening. Only 2 days out of the 7 days are students even allowed in there, only limited times. So that restaurant has lost millions of dollars. It's on track to lose another over $500,000 this year alone. It's never been self-sustaining. By law, these types of enterprises at public universities must be self-sustaining by law. So what happens? You had senior administrators doing the wining and the dining and signing it off on a house account. Again, senior administrators, they have been there the long time. They're well compensated for the jobs that they do, well compensated. They should know the legal ramifications of what they're doing, and they failed. They failed to do it, and the board went along with it.
Now we're here at the state capitol, and you're the legislatures, and you're not board members of the College of DuPage, but you are, again, from that area. What reforms, one, can be done about the College of DuPage, but just to extrapolate that, so that this doesn't happen, is there anything that we can do so it doesn't happen across the state?
I'll let Jeanne talk about the bill. She just got out of committee literally minutes ago. But Terry, the idea, we're legislators and our job is to address problems. And when a problem like this, conspicuous problem at that, comes to our attention, our duty is to address it and make sure it doesn't happen again. And I think I would never presume to think that this type of situation is going on at the 38 other junior colleges in Illinois. It would be nearly as presumptuous to assume that something untoward and or not kosher isn't going on. So we have a duty to address the problem and also make sure institutionally that it doesn't happen anywhere else as well. And Jeanne's got a great bill we got out of committee today that I think will help.
And Jeanne, first of all, what committee was that and what's the bill number?
The bill number is HB 3593, and it came out of the Judiciary Civil Committee this morning. And it takes the first big problem that we had with Bruder's contract being $762,000, a huge buyout package, the likes we've never seen before. So it took that and said, look, if you're going to give severance, it's limited to 1 year plus benefits. That's it. You get nothing more than that. Then it also limits the amount of contract, because part of the problem with Bruder is that he was technically, apparently supposed to be on contract till 2019, which encumbers future boards. So we said if you have a 3-year rolling contract, it's limited to 3 years with a 1-year roll. And then part of the problem with Bruder's contract is none of the extensions, well, part of it was they were automatic renewals. Second, there was extensions that were not done in the full transparency of the public eye. So the bill corrects for that. It also says if you're on a straight contract, you get 4 years as a straight contract. Right now, literally, you could enter into a contract indefinitely with the board president, no end date at all. That encumbers future boards. I think that's wrong. So that's the first step.
And she also has, and I'm going to go talk to a few of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, the best thing I think that we still have going for us was the audit request. Jeanne put out HR 55, yes. And that was calling for William Holland, who I know pretty well. I used to sit on the audit committee. His office is impeccable, and they do a wonderful job. Audit after audit uncovers things that make everyone kind of go, oh, come on. Every day they work, they find something worth their while and worth the cost and expense of their time and resources. So House Resolution 55 sought to utilize the Auditor General and have a performance audit of COD. I am certain, irrespective of what the feds are doing, or Bob Berlin, or any state's attorney, William Holland will find something that no one else will find, and it will help with respect to other bills and reforms that we want to undertake. They're fastidious in their endeavors and beyond reproach. So we will learn something. It will make our stomachs probably churn ever more, but it will help prevent the next catastrophe too.
And what does it say? I mean, again, I have to throw in the alleged things here, but that a board, not only when you find these allegations by the college president, but then they reward him.
Just shows you how.
Yes. Well, here's the deal on that.
And what does it say about the people of DuPage? I mean, what is the political attitude? I mean, to me, I would just be outraged.
They are outraged, which is why the clean slate won in a clean sweep actually got our message out that you need to really transform that board. And so a board's responsibility steps in when they are faced with the malfeasance, when they're faced with the problems, and they fail to act correctly, then really the board is at fault. Completely at fault, and that's what happened here. They failed to act on behalf of the taxpayers, and the best thing about the performance audit that the Auditor General should do, and hopefully we get that bill through, the best thing about that is that we're going to uncover whether or not the board followed their own procedures and Illinois state law, and if they fail to do so, we have the ability then to maybe claw back some of that contract and other things that the taxpayers paid for.
I meant to ask earlier, the bill you were just passed out of committee that would make those changes, is that going forward, I guess? It wouldn't
retroactively.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
So, all right, so right now, just where do we stand? We get this, we got a clean slate, we got a new board for the College of DuPage. They're committed to hold sanity, hopefully,
yes.
Follow fiduciary responsibilities. The president is on his way out, but when does he actually at this moment leave office?
He technically doesn't leave office until late spring of 2016. I believe it's May or June. And we're hoping, though, that he is immediately put on a leave of absence. And then pending some of these investigations, quite possibly, he should be actually fired for cause, in my opinion. I think we have more than enough substantiation from the using alcohol, taxpayer money to purchase alcohol, dining at taxpayers' request, no bid contracts to obviously friends of his foundation. There's just so many other things to talk about. Actually, the biggest problem I have too is they fudged enrollment numbers now is what it looks like. The Illinois Community College Board is themselves investigating whether or not they fudged enrollment numbers, and it looks like they did. So you've got a number of things that are operating there at College of DuPage, and a number of reasons, I think, to fire Dr. Bruder immediately.
Yeah, from my perspective, there's a new board and do exactly what they promised to do, which is manage the board, manage their employee, and take action. Whatever they do, I think they're going to do it in a way that's very visible and accountable. And so what I feel good about is that's going to take care of itself to a certain degree. But we still have a duty from a legislative perspective, frankly, to handcuff a little bit all boards. The idea of unfettered discretion is run amok, and this is example A of that. So there are some constraints, reasonable constraints that don't get in the day-to-day governance, but at the same time provide an environment of responsibility that I think we have to follow through on, and we intend to do just that.
I don't know if you want to address this or not, or if your mind it's maybe subject-wise tied together. There was a story about the Chicago Public Schools with a $20 million no-bid contract. So the citizens of Illinois think, my gosh, it's not only our governors, it's not only this person or that person, but they just it's no question that people are so turned off by politics and think it's a rigged game. Are these, in your mind, tied together? And
yes,
let me have you
again, it goes to the idea that what you had here again is you had board failure, but again, you had inside administrators, people that are responsible for signing the back of the check or signing the front of the check, people that look at the invoices, people that should know the bidding constraints that are already in place to protect taxpayers, then they weren't followed. This is my whole thing. These administrators had better understand what is Illinois law right now and better adhere to it. Otherwise, they should be fired too.
And just last question before we close out. I mean, maybe just on a personal level, when this came to light, what was your reaction yourselves as you heard about this?
Well, actually, a lot of my information came from Trustee Hamilton and then Jeanne, and then I started the Tribune. We were just talking before we got on camera, Terry. The Tribune reporters, Stacy St. Clair and Jody Cohen, have been relentless in their pursuit of this story. I forgot the Daily Herald reporters. I want to make sure in journalism we acknowledge people who have done an extraordinary job. Both newspapers have shown themselves to be top flight people and good publications in getting the story out repeatedly after day. My first reaction was, you got to be kidding me. I was a mayor of a town, and I know we removed the village manager when I was mayor of town, and I've seen those type of employee interactions, and they're very complicated. They're not easy. But as this story has evolved, it really is easy. This is a completely backward relationship. This was a president who ran the board, who ran the administration unfettered, unrestrained, and he ran it amok. So each time I open the Trib or the Daily Herald, I get a little sicker thinking about it, and I know my friends, my constituents, and neighbors feel the same way.
I was flabbergasted. You know what, to me it said, this is one more example of corruption in the state of Illinois that does a disservice to the hardworking individuals, the people that just want to send their kid to college, the people that want something affordable. This is a smack in their face to really good government at a community college that is supposed to be there to serve the neediest students, to give them the initial start and the leg up. I was disgusted. Honestly, that was my response. I was absolutely disgusted with it. So, I mean, I'm still disgusted by it all. I find out that, normal people are not corrupt, but we have so many people, the powers of position here that are, it's mind-boggling.
Terry, can I just say one thing? Because Jeanne and I are clear about one thing. The College of DuPage is a wonderful community asset. The students there have been shortchanged. The faculty has been shortchanged. The taxpayers and the neighbors have been shortchanged. That institution, which does look like a Division II university, can be the best junior college in the country and maybe the best value-added component for thoughtful people who can't afford or don't want to make a 6-digit investment in education. Your first 2 years there, you can matriculate to U of I, Harvard, Southern Methodist University, wherever. Their track record is impeccable when it comes to educating and getting students ready. However, what that president has done is, off the backs of those students, faculty, and taxpayers, try to make himself become the focal point of attention, and he's run aground a great institution. Part of our job is revitalizing that image of a venerable junior college and making sure its mission is adhered to.
Well, and we want to say Trustee Hamilton, just to make that
done a
clear,
great job.
was a profile and courage in this, right?
She got censured, for goodness sake. So
they censored her. They threw her off the audit committee. She's the only one with a CPA and an MBA.
Because she was the only one really
asking the right questions
and making them look bad.
It was ridiculous.
We applaud it, and this is what we need on every board. We need people with courage. It's more important that you have intellectual curiosity and a courageous heart to ask the right questions, and the dumb question, because that's going to get you further.
It's the best question. I don't get this. What are we doing here? Explain this to me.
Explain this exactly.
Well, we'll follow it up, and we appreciate you both taking the time to talk.
Thank you, Terry.
Thanks. You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.